Hey guys, it's Clockwork Music, and in today's video I'm going to be making the worst Beatles album, and this is all my opinion. So in my opinion, there isn't really a bad Beatles song. I do like every single Beatles song, but on some albums there is quite a few fillers, which I'm not too fond of, but I've just comprised an album of my least favourite from each album. So to start off, we've got the album format here. Obviously it's very similar to my greatest album, in my opinion. 14 songs, 2 songs for the White Album, and it's just the worst one off each album. So let's get started with Please Please Me. So I've chosen A Taste of Honey. I do like this song. It is a cover, but it's interesting the way that Ringo sings it, but I just don't really enjoy it that much. It's not my favourite song at all. Some honourable mentions there are Boys and Baby It's You. Moving on to With the Beatles, we've got Little Child. I just think this song is extremely repetitive. Just gets really annoying after all, just repeating the same lyrics again and again. I still think it's quite catchy sometimes, but I'm just not a big fan of it. Compared to songs like All My Loving, All I've Got to Do, and It Won't Be Long, it's just not good at all. Obviously my honourable mention is I Want to Be Your Man. They gave this to the Rolling Stones, and obviously they covered it themselves. And it's a decent song, but it's just nowhere on the same levels as songs like Devil in Your Heart and stuff like that. I just don't think it's the best song on the album. So we move on to A Hard Day's Night, one of my favourite albums for its first side one. But I've decided to put You Can't Do That just because I'm not really familiar with this song. I kind of know it-ish, but I don't think it was in the Hard Day's Night movie, so I kind of wasn't really familiar with it. I'll also put I'll Be Back and When I Get Home just because, again, I'm not familiar with those. I'll have to listen to those at some point and familiarise myself with them because they're decent songs, I think, but I'm not too sure. Next we've got Beatles for Sale. This is a decent album. It's probably not the best Beatles album ever. It's probably the worst of the early Beatles albums. I think it was a bit of a step down from A Hard Day's Night, and obviously after this they released Help, which was definitely a step up. But I've decided to go with I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. I just think this song is just not exciting at all. I mean, No Reply, I'm a Loser, amazing. Babies in Black is a great cover. Rock and Roll Music, great cover. I'll Follow the Sun, very, very nice song. So is Mr. Moonlight. All of the songs on there are great, except I just don't really like I Don't Want to Spoil the Party and Every Little Thing. That's my honourable mention. I just don't like those two songs. Anyway, moving on to Help. This is a very strong album, obviously. The first half was all on the Help movie, but I've decided to go with It's Only Love just because this is the only song on the album which I really haven't listened to much, and I just don't think it's that good. I also put honourable mentions You Like Me Too Much and Dizzy Miss Lizzie. I think You Like Me Too Much is a George song, and it's a decent effort from George if it is by him, but I'm not a big fan of it. Also, Dizzy Miss Lizzie is just, I don't know, it's just not my favourite end to the album. I would have liked it to end with Yesterday. I just thought that would have been a great end, but I don't think the Beatles had got to that point where they could end an album with Yesterday. They had to go back and end it with a rock song. So we move on to Rubber Soul. In my opinion, this was the hardest one because this is probably my 4th favourite album by the Beatles. I looked through that track list and I just thought, what bad songs are on there, and there's hardly any. I would have gone with What Goes On, but I'm just going to say I do really like Ringo's vocals on What Goes On, so I went there with The Word, just because sometimes it annoys me, depends how I feel. And I've got no honourable mentions just because this is a really, really strong album. Next we've got my favourite album, Revolver, obviously released in 1966. I've put Dr. Robert as the worst song on the album. I just think that it's just a really filler song. I think it has a meaning behind it with Dr. Robert, and obviously Robert Zinnemann and Bob Dylan, as they prescribed him lots of drugs. Bob Dylan prescribed the Beatles with lots of drugs during 1965 and 1966, therefore it's called Dr. Robert. Also for honourable mentions, I didn't really want to do this, but I put Love You Too and Got to Get You Into My Life. The only reason I've done that is just because Love You Too is a bit psychedelic, but I do like it. It's a great song. I just kind of felt like I had to put at least 2. And Got to Get You Into My Life is really nice, but I'm not really a big fan of the horns on the song. Next we move on to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and this is arguably the best album of all time, and doesn't really have any bad songs. However, I've chosen Good Morning, Good Morning, just because it's one of the most odd songs on the album. I've looked at like the timing and stuff in it, and like the time it's in and stuff like that, and it's really weird. I've watched many videos on this song and it's an interesting one, but I'm just not a big fan of it at all. I definitely prefer songs like She's Leaving Home and With a Little Help from My Friends. Honourable mentions is Within You Without You, obviously a George Indian psychedelic kind of song. So we move on to Magical Mystery Tour. Obviously this is a really easy one. I've gone with Flying, just because it's an instrumental song by all the Beatles, and I just don't think it's that strong at all. Honourable mentions, Blue Jay Way by George, I just don't think it's that strong at all. Moving on to the White Album / the Beatles. In a recent video, someone suggested that I do a song from each side, which is what I didn't do in my original Greatest Beatles album, but I've decided to do it this time. I've gone with Revolution 9 and Why Don't We Do It in the Road. A lot of people might be thinking, oh, why didn't you choose Don't Pass Me By? I really like Don't Pass Me By. I think it's a great song by Ringo. I really enjoy the honky tonk of it, and I really like his voice in it. It's great. Revolution 9, obviously, I think a very political song, and obviously it was John's, but I'm not a big fan of it at all. I don't mind it, but I wouldn't really listen to it if I'm listening to the White Album. Also, Why Don't We Do It in the Road? It's just not very catchy in my opinion. So, let me go back for a minute. My honourable mentions were Savoy Truffle and Year Blues. I think George Harrison did have a bit of fun on Savoy Truffle, but it's just not really a good song, and Year Blues at the end of the day is nowhere near as good as everything on the album. Yellow Submarine, I haven't decided to go with any of the orchestral songs like Pepperland and Sea of Monsters, just because they're not really songs, it's more of a soundtrack there. So I've decided to go with only a Northern song, again another George song. I just don't think it's strong at all, and I'm not really a big fan of it. You Like Me Too Much as well is one I'm not very familiar with, and when I'm listening to this album, all I listen to is All Together Now, Hey Blue Dog, and All You Need Is Love, and also Yellow Submarine, obviously. Abbey Road next, one of my second favourite Beatles album, I would say. I decided to go with Her Majesty. When I was really young and I used to listen to this album, I used to really like Her Majesty because it was a secret track, obviously, and it was really short and cool, and I just really liked the song. But as I've got older, I've realised that at the end of the day, yes, it's kind of part of the medley at the end, but at the end of the day, it's not really, because it's got 20 seconds between the end and Her Majesty. So therefore, I kind of just think it's the weakest song. I don't really feel like I want to put Maxwell's Silver Hammer in honourable mentions, but I feel like I have to, because the songs on it are just so amazing, and I can't really single out any of the songs from the medley, just because they all go together so well and they all connect together perfectly. So I've decided to go with Maxwell's Silver Hammer, even though this is one of my favourite songs by Paul. I've had to do it, just because I needed an honourable mention. So Let It Be, I decided to go with For You Blue. I do quite enjoy this song quite a bit, but it was a big decision between Maggie May and For You Blue. The only reason I didn't choose Maggie May is because I recently watched Nowhere Boy again, because I haven't watched it for years, and I saw the Quarrymen performing Maggie May, and it just kind of reminded me that this song was kind of in the Beatles' roots, and I just thought it was quite a cool little song on it. So that's what I've gone with for my albums. So this is the complete album. A Taste of Honey, Little Child, You Can't Do That, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, It's Only Love, The Word, Dr. Robert, Good Morning, Flying, Why Don't We Do It in the Road, Revolution 9, Only a Northern Song, Her Majesty, and For You Blue. So if you'd like to listen to this album, even though it's probably the worst songs on it in my opinion, then I will put it in the description and it'll be in my playlists. So if you want to see that, then just go over to my playlist, and thank you for watching this video. I'll see you soon.